And we're back. Today is a very, very special episode of Big Ten Live. That's right, folks. On the back of one of the most hectic days in college football history, especially modern college football history, we are going to wrap it all up here. My name's John Diadamo. You can find me on Twitter at John Diadamo. I am the usual host of Big Ten Live, The Ocho. I also host Michigan Wolverines Live every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And of course, the breaking news that we have been covering today, Oregon and Washington are officially joining the Big Ten. Now, this is really something that we had been calling, and I had been predicting all the way back to when USC and UCLA joined the Big Ten. If you remember, all the way back to that show in the Voice of College Football, I was saying, I was still one Scoop John at the time, and I was saying, watch out because Oregon and Washington are next. And I wasn't the only one. I'd say a decent chunk of our audience was saying it too. This is not a shock to anybody who's been paying attention. With Klyavkov just absolutely bungling things by not getting that media deal done fast enough, the schools had enough, and they see the Big Ten here with a $1 billion media deal, and how could you blame them for not wanting in? So we have a quote, and we'll take calls in just a second, but we have a quote from the Oregon athletic director, Rob Mullins, saying that accepting membership into the Big Ten Conference is a transformational opportunity for the University of Oregon to change the trajectory of our university athletics department. And if you keep reading, it's the CBS Sports article. So one thing that I think is key there is transformational trajectory. Look for the words. Go beyond the PR spin, and this is money. When you hear the word opportunity, it means money. Okay, they are sick of what they've been dealing with in the Pac-12, and obviously. Washington feels the same way. Jennifer Cohen said the college athletics landscape has changed dramatically in recent years. And so this brings the Big Ten up to 18, which, of course, what's really interesting about that is that there's some conversations about whether they're going to go from 18, state 18, they're going to go to 20, add Cal and Stanford. It looks like we already have a caller, so I'm going to bring him in just a second here. But please go ahead and call the show. We would love to have you on. But for right now, we're going to bring on a friend of the program, Chris Foote, is here with us. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you, John?
Great. Glad I decided I was just going to pop up a little late night show, and Mark said it was okay, and I was like, we got to do a wrap up. Let's keep the momentum going. What's your take on this big news?
Well, I'll have to be honest with you. I don't really have a take on it, except that I think what it kind of does, I guess, maybe I'm stating the obvious. I guess it kind of lets the Big Ten Conference have kind of a, kind of a wider, I guess, stance or whatever you want to call it in terms of how they can, they're bringing in two very good programs. I think that'll keep them, very strong moving forward. And I think Oregon, obviously, they've got a good program there, and Washington, I think they're probably as good of a team as you can expect to bring in. So it should help, I guess, solidify the Pac-12 the Big Ten as a conference that'll be front and center, I guess, moving forward. I don't know if bringing in more teams, if that necessarily, you have to find a place where, at what point does it maybe become too much to do or manage, I guess. I don't know, maybe there isn't a point like that, but I know sometimes.
Chris, I was just on Twisted Rooster, and we were talking about that. And there was somebody asking, is there going to even be further mergers to the point where maybe there's only 2 conferences, or maybe there's even one mega conference? So we were discussing those different scenarios. Me personally, I think we're headed to 2 super conferences. What's kind of your vision on it?
Well, I have to be honest with you again. This isn't necessarily something that I saw coming, even though I know they talked about the Four Corner schools. Honestly, I just thought that was rumor. I didn't really think that would happen. I kind of suspected what I was thinking would happen, honestly, was I was thinking with the SEC kind of expanding into the, Southwest sort of area, I assumed that what they would maybe do was I kind of expected them to bring in the entire, within proximity, not the ones that are too far out. But I really didn't think that they would bring in those Four Corner schools. That kind of caught me by surprise. Even though I know it's been talked about, that wasn't something I thought would happen. In all honesty, I didn't really think that would happen. I didn't expect it.
So when you say the 4, you're talking about USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington?
Oh, no. Well, I was actually talking about I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off topic, I guess. In other words, I didn't know what would happen as far as the Big Ten. I didn't know.
Okay.
I know there was talk that they would probably bring in Washington and Oregon, but
sure.
At some point, I guess my question might be, where do you, 18, okay, well, that's fine, I guess. But I don't know that if you're going to go to 18, why not go to, like you were saying, why not include 20? Why not include, I don't know, 30? I mean, I don't know. At some point, I don't know that it really matters how many you bring in. If you're just looking as a marketing strategy, I think you could bring in as many teams as you want and still have a pretty good.
There was somebody who was saying, Klyavkov might do a last-ditch attempt at not a merger, but an acquisition, the Big Ten acquiring the Pac-12 kind of.
That was something I expected. That was kind of something I thought might happen. Yeah, I expected it to be more of a merger.
Yeah, and I guess the only issue with that is teams like Washington State, Oregon State, they're probably not coming along for the ride. It could be bait for a lot of reasons. So the Big Ten is like they are very limited with who they select. They don't select schools that aren't either in the AAU or they're working towards the AAU. You have to have research dollars. You have to have academics going. There's a lot that has to be there in order to join the Big Ten.
I don't even doubt that you're right about that. I just, for example, I was under the impression, probably the wrong impression, I guess. I just assumed that Colorado, since they're in the Pac-12, I assumed that they might be one of the teams that the Big Ten might look for. And I actually kind of suspect that, I don't know, what all goes into all this stuff. Maybe Deion Sanders being at Colorado, maybe they say he's more Southwest or whatever in terms of his, where he wants to be, I guess. And so maybe that has something to do with it. But I was expecting, I guess, like you were saying, I was actually kind of expecting that the Big Ten and Pac-12 might just simply kind of merge. I was kind of surprised to find out that wasn't happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I definitely saw a West Pod forming when USC and UCLA were coming aboard. I said there's probably going to be a West Pod with Oregon and Washington. It feels like they're the next two from a ratings perspective. They bring in their games are out of everybody in the Pac-12. Once you take USC and UCLA off the table, you look at ratings. Washington actually ranks I want to say third. And so they do very well in the ratings. Oregon has their brand. They have Phil Knight, the Nike money that they have flowing in. Those are kind of two of the big brands. And so it then leads you to think, well, the Pac-12 is what now? I mean, is it at this point, what are they, the Pac-4? And they're probably, I mean, those schools are what? They're probably going to go to the G5 or they're going to go independent or something's going to happen. I'd love to hear some of the people in chat with their take on what'll happen with the remaining schools. But I think it spoke volumes that even on the Pac-12 chat show, that they were basically saying it's over, and that I think that said a lot right there. So yeah, it's an interesting day in college football history. We're going to be marking it down and thinking about it, I think, for a while if we continue to head towards super conferences.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at going up to, what is it? We're at 18, I guess, or is it at 18? Anyway.
Yeah, 18.
Okay. Kind of like what I was trying to say. I think if you're going to include that many, I mean, in all honesty, I don't know why you don't just keep, I mean, I wouldn't ever do that because I kind of think you're kind of undercutting your own. I mean, the more you have, the more, I don't know. My own opinion is that's not necessarily good for each, but it's not necessarily bad either. I mean, so I don't know why they wouldn't just keep expanding to where, so like what you say, there's a Pac-4 or something like that. Why not go to 20? I mean, I don't quite understand at this point, why limit it just to 2 if you can bring in, you say that they might not qualify academically, but I think they're probably Washington State and Oregon State. I think, they're good enough, I think, to where it's not going to diminish what you have. I mean, they might not necessarily make it any better, but they're not going to bring it down either.
Well,
So
I think it's CALLIN Stanford. I think it'll if it's going to be another 2 to make it 20, it's going to be CALLIN Stanford. So they have the academics down pat, especially Stanford. They're an Ivy. So from an academics perspective, they're the types of schools that that the Big Ten would be looking at.
So you're gonna demote 2 of the programs in the Pac-12 just because they're not quite up to where they need to be. I mean, I don't know.
I don't like it, but that's probably. I mean, what are I guess the other if we game out the scenarios here, the SEC ain't taking them.
Oh, I know.
The Big Ten probably won't because they're going to go CALLIN Stanford to make it 20 if they even take them. The Big 12 seems like their cup kind of runneth over lately.
Sure.
So their choices are what? Go independent, go to the ACC and be locked into a 20-year deal, and it's jury's out if they would even take them. I think they'd get demoted. Yeah, they'd probably go to the Mountain West or another a G5 conference.
Okay. One thing I disagree. I'm not disagreeing with you. Mark said, I don't know, I might be misquoting him, so if I do, I apologize. He seemed to think that in this era that we're living in, that he didn't think that geography, the distance, I guess, between, or the time zone difference, whatever, he didn't seem to think that was that important, but I tend to disagree with that. I kind of think, in fact, I really disagree strongly with that. I think the right approach, I think, would be to position each conference in a way that's central to one geography. I think that's a lot better way to go about this than just bringing in the best teams. I mean, you want to bring in the best teams, no doubt, but like there was talk about bringing in like Florida State and Miami, and I just don't really understand what that, if they do, which, they might do it anyway, but to me, you're just spreading yourself out, and that doesn't really, like you mentioned the ACC that they could bring in. I really don't think that that's a practical way to, I mean, it might work, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's ways to work through it, but I think in the world that we're living in now, I think that actually is more important, I think, to have everything kind of close in a geographical way, because I just do. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but so I disagree with Mark on that part.
Well, if you're looking at time zone and you're looking at travel and things like that, so the Big Ten had announced the Flex Protect Plus. And the reason why that model was selected is so that the travel was spread through the different programs. And there's still going to be travel, but there's travel in every sport. And these are student athletes that have access to the best travel and all of that kind of stuff. So they'll do it strategically, I'm sure. Where most likely in November, you're going to see some people go over to the West Coast. In September, you might see some people go over to the Midwest and things like that. You might see some flip flop there, but I think that they'll take the Flex Protect Plus model that they already have, and I think that they were factoring this in a little bit in some of the when I looked at the protected rivalries when they announced the Flex Protect Plus, I was like, Some people only have like one. Some people have none. And I'm thinking to myself, there's some holes here where I think they might be filling in with an Oregon type, a Washington type, maybe Notre Dame down the line. I just saw that there were some puzzle pieces missing that they might have been anticipating additional schools.
Well, no, I mean, I don't mean to like say, well, they shouldn't consider if you're going to bring in the best schools, no matter who they are. I actually agree with that. I mean, maybe it's Miami. I don't know. I'm not going to say it isn't. Or they already have Nebraska, I guess. But at some point, I think you have to kind of weigh the pros and the cons. I mean, has Nebraska really done much to make the Big Ten any better? I mean, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. I really don't think so. But at the same time, do you want to like not bring in somebody that might? I don't know what the right approach is. I guess it's one of those things. I think you have to look kind of closer at it than just whether they fit geography. So it's not just as simple as that. But I kind of I actually thought Nebraska might be going to the Big 12 because I think they fit better in that conference than they do in the Big 10. I was a little surprised to find out that wasn't going to happen. Well,
Nebraska is probably locked into the Big 10 for a while. I don't know when the end date is on their contract, but I don't think they're going anywhere. But Chris, we do have another caller, so we do always appreciate you calling in. But we're going to go to our next caller. But keep thinking about it, and if you think of other things, hit the comments or call into the next show. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Chris. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Before we take our next caller, we do have a super chat from friend of the program, Lemansky, Iowa Hawkeye extraordinaire, voice of college football equals CNN of the college gridiron. Thanks, John. Thanks, Lemansky, and I'm glad I was able to come on live. I was talking to Mark, and I was like, hey, we should what do you think about just wrapping up with a wrap up show? He was like, he was cool with it. I'm like, let's just get on. I'm just gonna get on here and talk to people because this is a topic that we've had thousands of people the last couple of days, thousands of people watching these shows, talking about these things. So I figured let's keep the momentum going and let's keep the calls going with friend of the program, DeReal MVP is here with us. DeReal, always great to hear from you.
Same as you, John. Same as you.
So how about this? I heard you were on the the Corey show, the Hawkeye of the Storm when he was doing his show. So it's there's been a lot of talk about the big news, Oregon and Washington.
Yeah, I'm going to echo some of the similar points I echoed on that show. Listen, academics and conference realignment, I don't want to hear anything about that. Again, you could have had the Big Ten could have had Oregon or Washington or Stanford and Cal. They chose Oregon and Washington. Stanford and Cal is much better academics than Oregon and Washington. Now, does that mean Oregon and Washington is trash when it comes to their academics? Absolutely not. But if this whole thing of realignment is about academics, then this move makes no sense at all. So I think we can just get rid of that narrative completely.
But DeReal, there's these things called nuances, and there's actually like layers to these things. So think of it like a giant, Italian sandwich. I don't know, pick your favorite place, Jersey Mike's, whatever. Okay, you've got your layers. Education, academics, research dollars, that's one layer. And so you acknowledged Oregon and Washington, they didn't stink academically. They're not at the same level as Cal and Stanford, but Oregon and Washington have big brands, and I do think that that's probably at the top of the sandwich, like very, very heavily involved. Big brands, big money, ratings. Washington gets really good ratings. I believe that they were third last year in games, right under USC and UCLA games, and they were pretty high in the TV ratings, if I recall correctly. So it's all of these things mushed together. We can't just say academics, let's just throw it out. But I don't think it was the determining factor. No.
Right. I think the last 100-year moves, which has been as you go up in academics, you also go up in athletics. I think that was a correlation. I don't think it was a causation. All I'm saying is the Oregon and Washington move shows that this academics is a correlation to athletics. It is not a causation. Therefore, academics does not drive athletics, is what these moves have shown me recently. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Now that's fair. But we don't.
Right.
So you're saying that's very different than let's throw out academics. There's
fair enough. I probably went on too strong. I probably went on too strong.
Yeah, it's all part of the puzzle.
Right. And something else. I was watching a local news reporter from the Bay Area, and he got it absolutely right. Does Stanford and Cal care about athletics enough to compete at an A5 level going forward if they want to be in the Big Ten? I honestly don't know. Now, I know Stanford's won all these Directors' Cups, but to me, I can go into why I don't believe in the Directors' Cups. I think it's a false metric to use, unless if people want to explain to me how women's volleyball should be equaled as much as football, then go ahead.
Well, remember, they also have the Stanford, you got the Stanford tree. I mean, that is really, that you want to talk about mascots. They're right up there. Can you guess what Stanford's endowment was?
It was like $26 billion or something crazy like that.
36.3 billion.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah. So when you look at all of these things, you've also got to look at things like endowments. So yeah, is athletics important? Yes, and I think that's why Oregon and Washington are here. But you also look at things like endowments. So I think what Tony always likes to do is look at the big picture, and there are all these different aspects to it. So for Stanford and Cal, the endowments are absurd, and the research dollars are absurd. Is the football performance there? No. Has it been in the past? Yes. But football performance is not everything. So I think I think it comes down to recognizable brands, which Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal are recognizable brands, especially Stanford. Cal, Aaron Rodgers, they had a pretty good run. But at the end of the day, I think it's all of it together, and that's why Stanford and Cal. Whereas with Chris Foote, we were talking about, well, why isn't Wazoo being considered, or why isn't I forget the other one? Why isn't Oregon State being considered? Well, are their endowments as high? Are their academic? I mean, apparently, they were saying in the chat that Washington State had pretty decent academics, but yeah, it's just a whole nother level. So I think Stanford and Cal make a lot of sense to me. So
well, if they made a lot of sense, I think at this point they would have been expanded. I mean, they had 4 goes around and they've been chosen 0% of the time. I mean, they could be chosen next time because there's almost nobody else to take to the dance, but
yeah, it's getting thin. I don't know. There's still a lot of questions on whether they'll stay at 18 or they'll go up to 20. I'm reading these CBS Sports reports and Sports Illustrated, and they're still contemplating it. So they're contemplating whether they're going to expand to 20, and is that going to help their power? Because at the end of the day, this is about power. You guys, the Big Ten wants to beat out the SEC. That's all this is about. That's right. We want to get the DeReal MVP endorsement for best conference, and in order to get the DeReal MVP endorsement, we got to bring in these schools and do this. But no, I think it'll be interesting to see if they do take Stanford and Cal, or hey, maybe Notre Dame will decide. I mean, the great thing about this is that nobody quite exactly knows. I certainly don't, and it's fun to just be part of the roller coaster ride here.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Now, I heard that Oregon and Washington are going to make less money in their first year than Arizona, the 4 corner schools, the Big 12 schools that got indicted today, or not, put into the Big 12. So, how embarrassing is that for Oregon and Washington to get less than a Big 12 school, if that's true?
Well, from what I saw, about the amount of media deal that they're getting, what I understood is that even if they only have half of the Big Ten of a share, even half would exceed the reported Apple deal that was being discussed for the Pac-12. So for them, financially, it makes sense to make the move. I don't think they were being discussed for the Big 12 ever. So basically, their choices are stick with a deal which is crap from Apple, or you go and have half of the Big Ten share. And then according to ESPN, that is going to grow over time. So it's not like they're just stuck in half a share forever.
Right. It's supposed to go like $1 million a year is what I heard. Now, I don't know if that's true. Obviously, this will all come out later. This is all fluid situation. So who knows? But I just found it funny that Arizona might make more money in the first year than Oregon. That's crazy to me. But John, let me ask you, there's been speculation already that the Big 12 is circling the waters again, trying to get 2 more schools.
Well,
how do you think that could shake things up?
I mean, I think the Big 12 is they're making moves at this point. I don't know if they're making the most well thought out moves. I think what they're doing is they're trying to stay relevant, and they're trying to stay in the same universe as the Big Ten and the SEC. The problem is they're not. And even if they can add as many, they can add as many of these UCFs and Southern Wichita states as they want. But at the end of the day, they're either gonna be demoted. The schools are going to be demoted, or the best ones are going to get gobbled up. I think by the 2 super conferences, which are going to be the Big Ten and the SEC. Again, I don't think this is going to happen like this year. I think this is going to happen over the next decade. But at the end of the day, I see no other scenario except the Big Ten and the SEC, Fox versus ESPN proxy war. And the NCAA is basically going to be like, what about me? They're going to be looking in the windowsill like, remember me? That's what I see happening. And, I might be wrong, but.
Yeah, I wonder, it would be a shame if there was another football league that just had 2 conferences that had a superior product because they had better players that paid more money. I mean, I feel like that could hurt college athletics overall because people would just turn into that league that's objectively better. But, what do I know? I'm just a fan of a team that's probably going to be in the Big 12 or the SWAC or whatever irrelevant conference is going to be in the future.
So if even half, so Slap Happy says Apple was 21 million. So if even half, if half of the share would exceed the Apple deal, that means that at least probably looking at 25 at minimum and maybe more. And if it's going to grow over time, then there is no reason to stick with a sinking ship that's already losing their crown. Oh
yeah, you're right.
USC.
You're absolutely right. But John, did you see what the Pac-4 did today? I mean, it should just completely ease everybody's nerves. They released a statement. So it's all okay. They released a statement. So it's all fine. Right? Isn't that how it works? You release a statement, you lose schools, and everything's okay?
Right. They're securing the best possible future, right? That's what they said?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we are the Pac-12 is focused on securing the best possible future after losing 5 schools in one day to the Big Ten and Big 12. CBS Sports, hilarious headline. Very well done, Dean Straka. Arizona State, and Utah joining the Big 12, and Oregon and Washington. Kliavkoff, I think, is going to go down in the history books as one of the most incompetent commissioners of a conference ever. He had plenty of time to secure this media deal. If I were him, the second USC, UCLA bolted, I would have locked that thing up as quickly. Like I'm a businessman. I do business, and I can see when the winds are changing. And the second they bolted, you got to secure the rest of it, or you're going to lose everything. And like anybody could have seen this coming. And at least Oregon and Washington gave him the year. Like, they did give him a year to get this thing done, and he didn't. I mean, he made all of the schools look like chumps at the media days by not having
Right.
the deal done by the media days. That, I think, was the death knell. I think that no, like, when you're running a an athletic department of a university, I mean, that's PR at the highest level. That's communications at the highest level. And to be like, you like looking like a fool is not taken well by any of these people. These are corporate people. They're lawyers. They're people who do not like being made fools of. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I
I think
absolutely
that
believe
was it.
that, but I think I saw an article that said USC and UCLA was 40% of the Pac-12's value. And I can kind of believe it after all this has happened, but it's just, you got to give blame to the presidents as well. I mean, Kliavkov can only do what he's told to do. And I think he was sent out to basically chase his own tail. And there was going to be nothing that satisfied. Apparently, they wanted $500 million after USC and UCLA left. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. That's
Darrell,
3/4 of what the Big Ten is.
Darrell, you and I don't always agree, but we agree on this one. I think it's absurd. Mike Fort, Michigan man in the chat, saying the same thing. 500 million bid was a joke. I think that they were definitely overestimating the value of having Washington State and like Arizona and Arizona State and these really barn burner games. I'm sorry, not worth 500 million. They should have taken, from what I heard, there was 30 million a school on the table at some point, and they should have taken that and ran. So I think that's the key. So it looks like I've got another caller who's been waiting a while, Darrell. So I'm going to let you go. I'm gonna do one at a time tonight. So I appreciate you calling in, though, man, and we'll keep the convo going. Hopefully, see you Monday for Big Ten Live.
Yeah, I'll be there. Fight on to USC and the Big Ten. Still the second best conference after this move, in my opinion. Still the second one.
Oh boy. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there in the end. Okay. Real quick, let me just take this super sticker. Thank you, Slap Happy, for your $2 super sticker. We appreciate that. Those of you who want to help us out, go to Amazon, click Mark's Amazon link. It's in every description section. You can check out our Patreon and Discord, talk college football all the time, and go to the merch store, get yourself some keychains, coasters, you name it. I'm going to put the link in the chat right here so you can go shop and get your goods and stuff for the upcoming football season. Coming up next, we have DE calling into the show. DE, thanks for being on.
Hey, John. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for calling in our Big Ten Live late night special edition here.
Yeah, big Michigan fan here.
Oh, wow. Go Blue.
First game, 1969, Ohio State, Michigan, Bo's first year.
Wow.
So I go back a ways. Listen,
Awesome.
This is a big money grab, and that's all this is. Disguised as education. And, I pulled up something interesting to talk about here. I think you're going to enjoy this maybe. If you look at the last year's CFP poll after the regular season and the championships were over, before there was any bowl games or CFP, and you look at the top 12 teams,
okay,
do you know that 3 of them were in the Pac-12?
That makes
Three
sense.
Three of them would have qualified. Utah, USC, and Washington, who finished 12th. So let's just look at last year, because this is some interesting stuff. The Big Ten, you might think it's crazy, but Franklin even said in media days that they want to get 6 teams in there. Now, they probably won't do that right away. But if you look at last year and you take those 3 Pac-12 schools and you add Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, it's 6.
Mhm.
So here's the way that would have shook out. Those top 4 seeds would have gotten a bye. Michigan would get a bye. Number 5, Alabama, would play a home game against Washington. Number 6, Tennessee, would play a home game against what I like to call State Penn, but they're otherwise known as Penn State. That's for my dad. That's for you, Dad.
Okay.
Then you'd have Clemson with a home game, and they would play USC. And then you would have the final home game would be Utah, who was the Pac-12 champ, and they would have played Kansas State. So it's kind of interesting how, if you look at that, how that all shook out and why the Big Ten did what they did. And I don't like it because I don't like any of it. It's all really about money, you know?
Sure.
Like, I don't even think these guys are student athletes anymore. I don't. These guys make a living. They can make good money. They're undercover as student athletes, but they're not a student athlete like a student athlete was even 5 years ago, you know? So that's just my opinion.
You're right. It's about money. And we were even just talking about, well, why is Stanford being considered? And I asked, can you guess what the endowment is? Stanford University, $36.3 billion. So, okay, maybe they haven't been amazing at football in recent years, but then you have the academics, being an Ivy, the research dollars, the endowment. It's all part of the puzzle. And so really this all boils down to money and power. And the money aspect, Oregon and Washington, they got it. Stanford and Cal, they got it. And so if they're the next ones, that makes sense. And it's about power because the Big Ten wants to square up against the SEC.
And John, I would agree with you 100% if I had to bet. If there was going to be 2 more, it would be those 2. Why would it be those 2? I hate to say this, politically, they fit the best. They fit the best. You know? Like, we know it's about money, but it's disguised as academics. Well, these guys are big-time academics, both of them. CALLIN.
Yep. Academically, research dollars, like we said. We've got Nick, who also is a Michigan fan, who just gave a $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Nick. Go Blue. If anyone in the Big Ten is happy about this, it's Ohio State, because the college football world is finally distracted from how soft their football team is in the trenches. OSU equals marshmallow football. Nick always comes through with the $9.99 humor super chats, bashing Ohio State, and I always enjoy reading them.
So, what did you think of the looking at last year's 12-team ranking?
Yeah,
and then seeing how because I talked to somebody, I was going to talk to somebody earlier, and I just posted it in the chat, and they were doing a Notre Dame thing. And I said, listen, Notre Dame, nobody should schedule them. Just don't schedule them. Let them, what kind of schedule, strength of schedule are they going to have if the Big Ten and the SEC don't play them? They're not going to have any strength of schedule.
right.
They're going to lose 2-3 games, and they're not going to make this final 12, which, by the way, in this final 12, there was 2 teams that had 3 losses, Utah and Kansas State.
And guess what? Guess what? There's even talk about going to 16. So the college football playoff commissioners are deliberating expanding the playoff further because of this realignment situation that we're in right now.
Well,
so not only, I think Notre Dame, where they fit in is, and we've had Will ND on, and we've, the Notre Dame people. And I think it's when you talk about it's about money, Notre Dame is asking NBC for $75 million for the next year of media. So, they have the independent media deal. So I think if they don't get any, because I think that's very unrealistic for, playing Navy. I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay $75 million playing Navy. It's absurd. So I think that, I think you're right. I think they're going to have to join a conference, and the Big Ten makes sense. But they may be, they're getting pretty full. So
hey, John, why should USC continue that series when I just reeled off 5 teams in their conference who they might have to play each year, and they're probably going to play 3 or 4 of them?
Honestly, it's a great question. I mean, the only thing I can say is historical rivalry. They are a rivalry dating all the way back to the 20s. And they've had some really legendary games. I do think that you're right, though. If USC is putting together their schedule and they know that they're going to have to play Ohio State, Michigan, also UCLA is not any spring chicken. They're pretty good, right? Iowa has an amazing defense. Wisconsin has a great defense. Luke Fickell, running game, air raid now that they're adding into that mix, right? And I'm missing a bunch, but I'm just on those alone, right? Penn State could win some of the other conferences. I think they have the misfortune of being in a conference and a division with Michigan and Ohio State. But I think they beat Utah, who won the conference, the Pac-12 conference. So I'm just saying, I'm backing up your point here.
And John, you segue into a great point with State Penn there, my friends from Penn State. They openly admit that they lucked out because they have no protected rivalry. So that means they don't have to play Ohio State every year.
Right,
they don't have to play, Shardy. Sorry, Michigan State. Okay. They don't have to play those rivalry games. And I really question, and this is controversy as hell, but I really question why anyone in the SEC or the Big Ten should have to play tough out of conference. Because, Michigan's got deals lined up here starting, what do we got next year? I think we got Oklahoma or something. I mean, you talk about shooting yourself in the foot. What's going to be interesting, though, John, is let's say Michigan or Ohio State finishes 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th. I'm sorry. Let me change that. 5, 6, 7, or 8. And a Clemson or a Tennessee or somebody like that finishes in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to go to Ann Arbor in December.
Mm-hmm. Good luck with that.
In the Big House.
Yeah.
Now that will be something to see.
It really will. Yeah, I mean, and that's something, we were doing last season. We were doing these Patreon brackets. So everybody on Voice of College Football Patreon could submit bracket of who they could potentially in the hypothetical 12-team playoff. So I don't know why my mic keeps getting muted there. Can you hear me okay? Now yours muted. That was weird.
All right, I'm back.
Okay. There we go. Alrighty. Anyway, I was just saying that we had a special thing where for Patreon we could fill out the brackets of like hypothetical 12-team, and it was really interesting seeing like, Alabama would have to travel to like Ohio State in December and all of these things. It's going to make it really interesting because teams that normally don't have to travel beyond like the South are like a very small area are now going to have to fly out to freaking Ann Arbor, Michigan and play in 10-degree weather.
Yeah. So. And then we spend a lot of our time talking about football, but it's going to be very interesting with the other sports as well, the non-revenue sports. Kids now do a lot of online. Ohio State specializes in that. How do you like that, Buckeyes out there? Specialize in the online classes, So you could see, my good friend John, you could see USC leaving Los Angeles in the non-revenue sports for even a couple of weeks while they go to Maryland, Rutgers, and get some of the East Coast, go home, come back to the Midwest, get Michigan State, Michigan, Illinois, whatever. Also, with baseball and softball, Los Angeles is going to open up an unbelievable opportunity for these Big Ten teams who have to go to Florida and other places during the spring. So they'll probably do some smart things. So there are some added benefits to it all. But my original point was just to point out that with the new Big Ten, 6 of the 12 teams would have been Big Ten members.
Yep.
And I think, what do we got? Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, that's 3. And that's it from the SEC.
How about that to real MVP? There we go.
6 versus 3. And then you had TCU, Clemson, and Kansas State.
How about that?
So that's how it shook out last year. Not that it will every year, but it certainly could. And if we, this is where I'm going to get controversial.
Okay.
Maybe even Michigan should consider dropping protected rivals. Because basically, if you have 1 or 2 losses in a power conference like the Big Ten or the SEC, you're in. Not going to happen. I understand that. But hey, Penn State was laughing to the bank about this. We don't have any protected rivalries. The good thing is that we may not have to play Michigan. We may not have to play Ohio State.
And because we do have another caller, we'll wrap up with our buddy DeReal, of course, is punching back at us and saying getting to the playoffs and most likely losing by 40 Is that the
No.
Big Ten's goal? Yeah, because
Hey,
all 6 of them are going to lose by 40.
when you lose 6-3, you got to punch back with something.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, my friend. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming on. Go Blue.
You got it, buddy. Go Blue.
Bye. All right. We continue on here with a special edition of the Big Ten Live Show. Friend of the program and host of Texas Tuesdays every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. I believe it's Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Matthew Miller's here joining us. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for stopping by on our big day here.
Yeah, no problem. I run a show every Tuesday at 7:30. So please show up. Come in there to the comments. I love the discussion. So please do that, guys.
Absolutely. Let me I'm just gonna pop that right in here. Host Texas Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, voice of college football. Boom. There we go. Get you a little banner there. There it is. How about that?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
How about that? So what's on your mind on our realignment wrap up?
So obviously we're protected. We're Texas. We're one of the 5 biggest brands in college football. But for the sport of college football, I think this is a sad day. I think you're going to lose those night games out on the West Coast. You're going to lose some of the East Coast games too. I think there's other dominoes that are going to fall over this next half decade to decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think eventually we are going to be to 2 conferences, 20 to probably 24 teams each, in my opinion. I don't think they'll get as big as 30.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get to a system to where I think you're going to have 12 to 16 playoffs teams, and you're going to have 8 probably from each conference. It's going to be a lot like the NFL. And I don't think that's good for college football because a lot of people that watch college football don't watch the NFL. They like college football because it's not the NFL. The NFL values the almighty dollar over everything. That's why you see teams play in London. There's really no point to that other than that. So I think at some point you got to value human beings to the dollar, and we're just not doing that. I think you see that in society nowadays, and we won't see it started on that. But I think it's a big issue. I really do. Obviously, money's important. Obviously, I'm a capitalist. I believe in that. So I 100% believe you have to value money, but you also have to value the human beings. And how do you think those human beings at Oregon State tonight feel? How do you think those people in Washington State feel? How do you think those people at Stanford and Cal feel? I mean, we have to value those people.
That's true.
We have to.
That is true.
And another thing is, why are they expanding the college football playoff now? If they would have done this earlier, we probably wouldn't be talking about this alignment like it is, because like the previous caller brought up, you would have had 3 teams in the Pac-12 make the playoff. That puts a bright light right on that conference. This should have been a bigger playoff from the beginning. If you want to get in conspiracies, how do you know the big boys up top didn't decide, let's make this so these people want to come to us and we can get more money? That could have been happening behind closed doors. We'll never know about that. Because did it ever make sense to have 4 college football playoff teams when you have 5 big conferences? And honestly, the American Athletic Conference, as you saw with Cincinnati, when they're at their best, they can compete with one of those 4 teams. I'm not saying they can beat them, but they can compete. So that's 6 teams right there. So at minimum, in my opinion, this should have always been at 6. I don't know why it wasn't. Now we're going to get to 12, and honestly, it probably will get to 16. And I'm wondering how that's going to work. So you have 2 big boy conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC. Let's say you have 16 teams. Are you going to put in 6 teams from each of those? You have 12, and then you have 4 at large, and you'll probably get another one from each. And then you'll have a random Big 12 team, or 1 or 2 random Big 12 teams, then another team from another conference. Is that how this is going to work?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either, and I'm very interested to see that. I'd be on board if they both expanded in the next year to where they both all 3 of them get to 20 somehow. And then you wanted to do, let's say you have 16, or let's say it's 12. Let's make it easy. You do 4 teams from each conference. The top 4 in each conference makes it. Or because the SEC and Big Ten, hey, we're better and we're willing to give you a seat at this table. Let's say 6 teams or 5 teams from each of their conferences, and then 2 from the Big 12. I could see that. I actually wouldn't hate that. That'd probably be the best case scenario. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, we will get there, like I said, in probably a decade. And I don't know about your opinion on this, John, but I really believe we're going to get to 2 conferences. It's probably going to be about 24 teams each.
When you laid out that, I was like, that's exactly what I've been saying. You laid it out almost to the letter the way I've been predicting it. 2 super conferences, about 24 each. Some teams are going to get demoted to the G5. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, so my opinion on that, now, if teams are able to shed their, let's say, quote-unquote, dead weight, what is your opinion? Who in the Big Ten is cut from that conference, and who in the SEC is going to be cut? I have a couple. Obviously, I know a couple teams that come to mind right off the bat. I live in Ohio, so I get to see a lot of Big Ten bad football. So there's about 3 or 4 teams that come to mind. I want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all can kind of think of who they are going, who they would shed. And you think of teams like Rutgers, you think of teams like Northwestern, you think, especially with the scandals that have been happening.
Yeah.
I would say that it's difficult to shed teams. Like people are talking about it like it's easy. It's not easy to shed teams. There's contractual agreements. You can't just like yank teams out for no reason. Are there clauses that I'm not aware of that they could tap into? Like maybe there's a morality clause that they could tap into for Northwestern in particular with what they're dealing with. I don't know, because I don't know if it's fully public, the entirety of these contracts, or just the broad strokes. But yeah, if I had to guess who would get tossed, I think it's safe to say Rutgers. I think it's safe to say Northwestern. I think it's safe. I think it's less safe, but possible that if Nebraska doesn't pick it up, Nebraska, this is their Matt Rule. They got to start bumping it up right now. And I think they will. I think Nebraska's probably going to go 6-6 was my official prediction, maybe 7-5. So this is the year. I mean, if you're on the bubble, you want to be performing well. Like you want to be performing and doing above expectations. Yeah, it's I know it's not legal. I get it. I know. There needs to be a certain amount of time, but we're saying the next decade. So I don't know when the end dates are for some of these schools. I'm sure that some of them are due sooner than others, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see here.
Yeah, 100%. It's obviously not legal, but the thing is, people don't realize that when the contract's up, you just don't renegotiate with the people you don't want in. Like you just say, we're not going to have you at the table when we negotiate this deal. And the thing is, if it really is all about money, why would you pay Rutgers $75 million or the same amount as Ohio State? Now, I could see where we get to the tier system of whatever you bring into the conference is like what they break up and give you. That I could see that, and that's where you keep Rutgers. But if you're just Ohio State, at some point it's going to be like, we're making $100 million. Rutgers is making $100 million. Why? And there's going to be probably 2 or 3 teams like that, and be like, can we get rid of them and make $130 to $140 million each instead of $100 if we got rid of 3 or 4 bad teams? I can 100% see that as a possibility. They've already been willing to do, in my opinion, the worst thing, which is rip away the important teams from out of big conferences that basically leave them. I mean, look, Oregon State's. I don't know what's going to happen to Oregon, because I don't know what's going to happen to Washington. You basically left them out in the ocean on their own little lifeboat and let the sharks start to just circle around them. So,
they're getting. I think they're getting demoted.
Yeah.
As of right this second, that may change. There may be a conference that's like, let's bring them in, but the way that it's looking, it seems like they're going to be demoted or go independent.
Yeah,
that's one is a great option.
What do you think about the SEC has been very quiet ever since they added Texas and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. When do they jump in and just grab Florida State and Clemson? That make way more sense for the SEC than they do the Big Ten. They just did alter that mold. I don't understand why they haven't reached out to them. In my opinion, even if I was the SEC, add 4 teams, add FSU, add Clemson, add Miami, and throw whatever other team you want in there. Throw in North Carolina. They're a decent football team. They got a lot of money. They got the Jordan brand, and they're very good at basketball most of the time. So why not throw them in? Right now, I actually disagree with the Real. Before the moves made today, I think the SEC was better. Right now, I think the Big Ten's better. if you look at the top 6 from each conference, I think the Big Ten's better than the SEC right now.
With the 2 additions.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. With the 2 additions. I mean, Washington would be probably, let's say, the 5th best team in the Big Ten. Who's the 5th best team in the SEC? I mean, you have Alabama, LSU, Georgia. Who do you have after that?
Good question.
Top 3, I would agree. I would take Alabama, Georgia, and LSU over Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. But after that, I think the Big Ten's better. Did he just say what? Did I see Darrell?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's not happy. He's not happy.
You can debate that, Darrell, but it's just the truth. And I'm a Texas fan. I want the SEC to be better.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I mean, if I guess we're not counting Texas and Oklahoma yet because they'll be in next year.
Yeah, but even if you put Texas versus Washington, we saw that in the bowl game.
True.
They beat us. So, I mean, we didn't play our best game. If our wide receivers learn how to catch the football, we win that game probably by 10 points. But they had like 5 or 6 drops. But guess what? They still won. So that's part of football.
Yeah. Georgia, Bama, LSU, South Carolina.
South Carolina versus Washington? Nah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of their top 5.
Oh, no. I agree. But that's what I'm saying. It's hard. But if you had FSU and Clemson,
right
there we go.
And then they're fine. Yeah, and that's. I mean, if I'm the SEC commissioner, I'm trying to get FSU and Clemson yesterday.
I mean,
because you've got to counterpunch now.
FSU is basically the hitchhiker on the side of the road, like, take me. I need something, because they clearly don't want to be in the ACC.
No. And I mean, who does with the crappy media deal that they have? And they see the Big Ten and it's like raining cash over there. And they're over here with with the cup in their hand. So
I got to get your opinion on this. I gave my opinion on who I believe the top 4. I think I may have seen your comment on my show, but who do you believe is going to make the college football playoff this year? I got to hit this, and then I'll get out of here. Okay.
Georgia, duh. Michigan. And then I'm not sure. If I had to guess right this second, USC. And then that last one, that's really your question mark. It could be Ohio State. It could be LSU. It could be Florida State, Clemson. One of those 2. Whoever wins the championship.
Yeah, 100%. I have the exact same 3, and then I have Florida State as my 4th. I think they're the number 1 returning team in production. Obviously, doing for the Texas show, I break down rosters and I look at returning production and stuff like that. This week, we're going to be breaking down who has the best O-line in the Big 12. And Florida State, because I looked at who Kansas was returning, and they're second in the whole college football world at returning production. Florida State is number 1. So I think Florida State's going to make the college football playoff. I think they'll at least get to the ACC championship game. I don't know who they play in it, because obviously the other side's not very good. But anything can happen, obviously. As we see, no offense, but TCU beat Michigan last year. No one expected that to happen, so we'll have to see. But I do agree. I think Georgia and Michigan are locks. I think Michigan, honestly, is the best in the Big Ten. I don't think it's honestly that close. I've been saying this, and I can finally say it in front of a lot more people. Penn State is the second team in the Big Ten. Ohio State is the 3rd best team. I'm done with this.
Oh, you and Jason are in agreement there, because Jason said the same thing.
What wins in football? Offensive line, defensive line. They're better than Ohio State at both of those positions, in my opinion. Now,
offensive line, I agree. I'm not going to go with you on defensive line.
That's fair.
I'll go with you on I'm going to go with you on offensive line. I think Ohio State's defensive line is better than people think, with JTT and some of their returning talent. I think they're going to be very good on the front line. Secondary, major questions.
Yeah, major questions. I mean, the secondary, honestly, since Urban Meyer left with Malik Cook and those guys, they haven't had any great secondary players. That's what they've been missing. So until someone steps up there, I mean, that's a gigantic question mark. But not to mention, Ohio State has guys playing linebacker like Borland, guys like that. I have no business playing at Ohio State. That's the
Panera
example of
Bread.
playing for
I mean,
Texas.
who
Those guys are
knows?
slow. They can't cover. Why are they playing at Ohio State? Don't get me started on that. I live in Ohio. I have to deal with these people, so it kind of gets annoying. But
Oh, we missed Tennessee. We missed Tennessee.
Tennessee,
Okay.
yeah, I just have big questions. Can he do it without a guy that I think is going to be a decent NFL quarterback? I don't know about Joe Milton. You would know more than I do. He obviously has a gigantic arm. He's a talented kid, but can he be accurate? That's the question. If he can be accurate, then yeah, I think Tennessee can duplicate what they did last year.
Yeah, Milton is very 50-50. Okay. So like imagine the Batman villain Two-Face. You flip the coin. Half the time he's laser accurate and he gets the ball where it needs to be. Half the time he's sailing it past the football field into some cornfield somewhere. You don't know which on any play it could be either of them. Now, do I think that Heupel has helped him? Yes. I think that what I saw against Clemson, he has improved compared to when Michigan was going to lose to Rutgers in 2020, and Cade McNamara had to come save Michigan from an embarrassing defeat. So,
Man, call this hero. I'm a lifelong bandwagon fan of Texas. What has Texas done in my lifetime other than be in one national championship and win one when I was 7? Bandwagon fan of. I would love to be a fan of anyone else, but guess what? I bleed orange and white. I don't care what to say. I love that team. I get angry with that team. I get sad with that team. After the 2009 championship game, it felt like I died on the inside for a week. Almost getting hurt and not being able to compete in that game where, if people remembered, it was 24-21 with about 6 minutes left with Garrett freaking Gilbert at quarterback. So I don't hear any bandwagon. I don't have a bandwagon to be on. That they're hopefully a new bandwagon is starting next year. I really believe in Texas. I think they're going to be one of the top 10 teams in the country. They could be. Their roster, I've discussed it, is loaded. As we continue to go down the Big 12 and I get deep down into other teams' rosters, it makes me even more excited because I'm like, how can we not win the Big 12 with rosters like, I don't know, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State? Really, the only roster, in my opinion, that's even close to ours is actually Kansas State. Surprisingly, Oklahoma is a mess at many positions. I ranked the running back, I believe, for 11th out of 14 in the Big 12. It's really not good at all. They don't have anybody other than Javonte Barnes. Marcus Majors is a big question mark. So Texas has to win the Big 12. Obviously, there isn't much of a bandwagon, but hook them.
there you go. Well, Matthew, I appreciate you stopping by late night here. We are going to encourage everybody to mark their calendars for Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for Texas Tuesdays. I try to make it when I can while I'm cooking dinner. Usually, you're on in the background. So everybody check them out.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Hook them. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks a lot, Matthew.
Yep. Thank you, John.
All righty. We're looking here at some of the comments that I've missed. This is a reminder that we can call the show. I'm not doing panel tonight because I'm definitely, it's almost 1 o'clock, and yeah, I'm not in the right frame of mind, I think, to be able to moderate a full panel, but we'll do the one-on-one callers. We are having a special episode of the Big Ten Live show, the realignment special. Oregon and Washington, for those of you living under a rock and are just tuning in and haven't been watching all day, Oregon and Washington have officially joined the Big Ten. It is done. It is happening. It was announced on Big Ten's Instagram account just a few hours ago. But what does this mean for everybody else? What does this mean for teams like Cal and Stanford? That remains to be seen. Could the SEC now try to gobble up Florida State and Clemson, as Matthew Miller, who was just on the show, speculated? It's all very possible. What we do want everybody to do, though, while we consider these things, is, of course, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. One more time. hit the like button if you like the content. Hit the subscribe button. And then hit the bell and hit all alerts. Not just some alerts, all alerts. So you get notified when we're going live with our incredible content that Mark Rogers puts out there. And then some of the other hosts that are out there. And then sometimes you get stuck with me. But there is a great lineup throughout the Voice of College Football Network. You just heard from one, Matthew Miller, who hosts our Texas show every Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Let's go through. Obviously, if you super chat, it's much more likely to get seen. So I am just going to remind everybody, general reminder, that just like in the Gremlins movie, Voice of College Football only has 3 rules, guys, in the chat. That's it. We don't have, if you go into a lot of YouTube shows, like big YouTube shows, they moderate those things tighter than I won't say it on air, but they moderate those things real tight, okay? Like a steel trap, there you go. They moderate it real tight. We keep things pretty loose here, but we do have 3 rules. 1, no attacks on the talent on air or attacks on each other, please, okay? It's just not what we do here, right? Attack teams, attack ideas, debate, that's all great. I let people say Michigan sucks all day long. All day long. I approve it. We have Charisse in here. You know, she talks crap about Michigan losing to TCU. I don't care. What I do care about is when people come on here and they dedicate their time to putting together a great show every week or multiple times a week, and then we have childhood insults in the chat. I'm going to time those people out. I'm sorry. I just am. And the reason is because we're better than that here, right? We want to have a higher level of insight and analysis, and the community here is actually, I'd say, one of the best. It's really just a few bad apples. I'd say 98% of the people here are awesome, and they love football, and they love this community. And Mike, I forgot to shout you out earlier. Mike, not Mike Fort, but the other one, the one with the numbers in his name, just got engaged. So congratulations to Mike on your engagement. That is awesome. Hope to get there one day in the far future myself, with that special someone or whatever. But Mike, congratulations on the engagement. So thank you very much for being here. Let's see here. We've got, some of these I'm going to skip past. Tennessee fans thinking Milton is winning a Heisman. Lol. Yeah, he's not winning a Heisman. I'm sorry. If he wins a Heisman, I will get a tattoo of Joe Milton somewhere if he wins the Heisman. You heard it here. Timestamp it. Come back to it in 3 or 4 months. Let me know when Penn State has a QB who can win a big game. Yeah, I mean, the last one. I mean, could you count Clifford in the Rose Bowl against Utah? I mean, is that a big game? Yes. I think the Rose Bowl's a big game. Was Utah a depleted football team? Yes. Both things are true. If you want to count the last big game as in beating Ohio State, then you would have to go back to the 2016 game against Ohio State, which was 24-21. And I'm trying to remember who the quarterback was in that game. Was it McSorley? I think it was McSorley. Yes, it was. So it was McSorley. Chris Godwin was on that team. Saquon Barkley was on that team. So that was kind of and also they had one of the best OCs in college football, Joe Moorhead. Okay. Thank you, Jason. Nope. Monday night. You guys who want the panel, Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, be here for the Ocho, and we'll have a panel. All right. I think, Steven, have you been watching me at all? John does not always side with his guest. It just so happened that Matthew had the exact same predictions that I did. It was scary. It was like, this is exactly, dude, you're saying exactly what I've been saying for like months. Haven't you been on when I've chopped it up with the Real MVP and some others where, like Ohio State fans, where we do not agree very much? Like, have you watched the panels on the Big Ten show? I don't agree with people all the time at all. Let's see. Someone hop on the show. So I'm going to put the link one more time, and then we'll probably pop off if we don't get another caller in the next minute or two. My name's John D'Adamo. I host usually the Big Ten Live show on Monday nights, but today we had a special edition because of the realignment news that Oregon and Washington are officially joining the Big Ten. We also have discussed whether they will add Cal and Stanford. The financial packages are still, I think, a little bit, I don't think we know exactly yet. Maybe we do. Somebody can post an article, but from what I heard, it sounds like Oregon and Washington will get a half share basically, and then over time it will go up. But even a half share is still more than the Apple deal was going to be. So there you go. And that deal wasn't even finalized. Don't forget to hit the Amazon link when you're doing your shopping on Amazon, as many of us do from time to time. Just click Mark Rogers' Amazon link. It takes 2 seconds, and then it helps the channel. Patreon, Discord. We talk college football all the time. Patreon.com/MarkRogersTV. Or you could go to YouTube membership, get a YouTube membership. And if your business, your product, your service, your brand, your YouTube channel, you want to promote it with a sponsorship, what you need to do is contact MarkRogersTV@gmail.com, and you can talk about how Voice of College Football and our network of over 90,000 subscribers across the whole network can benefit you. And with that, do you think Big is better than the SEC? As of right now, with the new additions, so I'm not going to go as far as to say absolutely right this second. I think we need to see it on the field. I'm a see it on the field guy. Do I think that the schools match up well? Yes. And yes, Jason and Mike are going to say yes. I'm going to be a little more of a maybe. I think you need to see it play out on the field. Georgia has won the last two. The last Big Ten national champion was 2014. And so I do believe national championships are one indicator. And so if Michigan if Michigan wins the national championship this year, which I think is at least possible, then that's worth looking at, right? That is a data point. So Rob, I think I'm with you. I think that the SEC is slightly better right now, and the Big Ten needs to win on the field. On the field. Dependent fanatic. Big Ten has to win to be better. There you go. I agree. That's pretty much what I'm saying. But it's close. It's closer now than it has been. Okay? And it was only a month or two ago where people were coming at me for saying that it's getting closer. You think I didn't factor in USC, UCLA coming aboard and the possibility of this happening? Of course I did. That's one of the reasons why I said that the gap was here and it's coming to here, right? I also used the fact that Ohio State and Michigan were both it was 7 points from an Ohio State-Michigan national championship. Okay? So the gap is closing. This just closed it even more. SEC, I'd say, is now like here. Big Ten's like here. And you got to win a national title. It's time for the Big Ten to win a natty. Let's do it. Make it happen. I know you're going to say that, John. It's all good. USC and Texas, I'd say, are at similar levels. And UCLA and Oklahoma, I'd say, are at similar levels right now. You can disagree with that take. But USC is, I'd say, in a realm similar to Texas. Texas, I don't know if Sark is it. SEC better top to bottom stop it. Well, Matthew Miller said it best. And he's a Texas fan. Okay? Who's the fifth best team in the SEC? Well, the fifth best team in the Big Ten, probably Oregon or Washington. Who's the fifth best in the SEC? I'd say the SEC is still the better best. The top team is still better. Georgia is still better. But it is what it is. This really isn't a Big Ten versus SEC show. We have those every day practically. This is Big Ten country. And today's news, big news, great for the Big Ten, not so great for some of the other schools who are going to be left out. I don't know what's going to happen to Oregon State. I don't know what's going to happen to Washington State. My best guess is they get demoted as of right this second, but I could be wrong. Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten. Oklahoma was 6-7 this year. Correct. This is what I'm saying. Although I'm also factoring in some past performance in there too. UCLA did better. My point is that I disagree with DeReal that Texas and Oklahoma were far better than USC, UCLA. Dependent has said it exactly right. Dependent Fanatic. By the way, Dependent Fanatic has up a new video. Everybody should check it out on Dependent Fanatic's page. One day, I'm going to get him to call into the panel discussion. It'll happen one day, but he is starting to do his own YouTube videos, and I'll put, if I can grab the link, where did my chat go? It's here somewhere. But pop, friend of the show, Dependent Fanatic. That's his YouTube channel. Check it out. Give it a sub. All right. Anything else? Otherwise, we're going to wrap. We're all going to go to, have a beverage, maybe have a cigar, go to bed, and just take in what's happened today, because it's really something else. All right, y'all. I really appreciate those of you who came on for our special edition today. My name is John Diadamo. I was the host tonight, and I usually host Big Ten Live, the Ocho, which is Mondays. Big Ten show starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. The Ocho is at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I do a panel discussion usually on that show. I also do Michigan Wolverines Live. I'm the official host of that show now. It's official that I'm running that show for the season. Dre is going to be hosting the Michigan post-game show. That was also big news that we broke on Wednesday, that Dre is coming back to host the post-game. So we're very excited about that too. Thank you so much, Daryl. Thank you, DE. I appreciate that. Thank you all. This is very nice. And everybody was a lot more cool and there were a lot fewer comments that we needed to weed out this time. So thank you for, being cordial to each other and debating in a respectful way. We may not always agree. We may have SEC versus Big Ten and all this, Michigan versus Ohio State, yada, yada, yada. But at least we can go at the teams. And that's the key. And that's what makes college football great, is the rivalries that we have. All right. The next show, I believe, will be Sunday night, the Trojan Conquest live show, assuming that they are I know that they've been taking some vacation, but I believe that will be the next show. So that's Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the USC channel. So I believe that's the next one, but someone else can tell me if there's one sooner than that. But until next time, folks, I want to wish you all a great night. And as always, go blue and go Big Ten. See you next time.